You ever hear of someone calling the cops on a guy for riding a jet ski on his own lake? Yeah, that happened to me. And let me tell you the level of genius I was up against with this HOA president. Well, it'd be funny if it wasn't so infuriating. One minute I'm out there, wind in my face, carving up the water like I finally found some peace in this crazy world, and the next there are 3 patrol cars at the end of my driveway, sirens going because apparently I was committing some kind of community resource violation. You can't make this stuff up. So let me back up a sec. I just moved out to my grandfather's old ranch after years in a cramped downtown apartment, and man, it felt like I'd hit the reset button on life. The house needed some work, sure, but the real jackpot was this lake sparkling right in the middle of my 180 acres. Grandpa had been drinking his coffee beside that water since the 80s, and you know there's just something about having your own slice of Texas where you don't have to answer to anyone. Or so I thought. First thing I did was buy myself a jet ski. Nothing fancy, just something that let me fly across the water on a Saturday morning with no crowds, no fees, nobody telling me what to do. And that's exactly how my first weekend went, until I noticed her. Victoria Knight, president of the Meadowbrook Heights HOA, standing at my property line cardigan and all waving at me like she was the queen of the neighborhood. At first she played nice, said she wanted to welcome me, told me about noise guidelines, talked about being considerate because sound carries across water, you know what I mean? She tried to make it all sound reasonable, but there was this look in her eyes like she already had a plan. So I pulled out my property deed, showed her the family's had this land since '87, and told her politely that I wasn't part of her HOA. For a second she looked like she might explode, but she just smiled and walked off. I figured that was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. That evening she was back at her window with binoculars. Monday morning, I get a 3-page letter in my mailbox signed with this mock government seal, accusing me of noise pollution and demanding I stop all motorized activity on my own land. I showed the letter to my neighbor Olivia, who's lived in the area for decades, and she just laughed. Honey, you're not the first. Victoria's run 4 families out of here, called the police over barking dogs, made people put up fences because she didn't like what she saw from her kitchen window. Turns out Victoria had lost her job, her marriage, and now her full-time hobby was bossing everyone around as HOA president. Still, I wanted to play it smart, so I brushed up on Texas property law, checked every ordinance I could find just to be sure. Spoiler, I was in the clear. Tuesday, I'm back on the lake. Victoria's in her backyard, timing me with a stopwatch, scribbling in a notepad, probably dreaming up her next complaint. By that night, there's a voicemail from the county office. They'd gotten a noise violation report about my address. Even the county clerk sounded tired of it. She tells me they'll flag Victoria's complaints as frivolous unless there's an actual violation. But Victoria, she's just getting warmed up. Next day, there's a car parked across the street taking pictures. Guess who's behind the wheel? Yeah, binoculars, Victoria. The whole thing's starting to feel like some bad reality show. I start documenting everything just in case. By Thursday, the state environmental office calls about a contamination complaint. They have to check it out, but even they sound skeptical. Turns out Victoria had even tried to buy part of the lake from my grandpa years ago and got rejected. She'd been after this water for a long time. Fast forward to Friday night, my phone rings. It's Deputy Nathaniel Gray from the Sheriff's Department. Apparently they've had reports of illegal activity and need to come investigate. I invite him over, tell him to bring his measuring tape, whatever he needs. That next morning, I'm sitting on my porch with my deed, jet ski registration, and a folder full of every letter Victoria ever sent. Deputy Gray shows up right at 10, and as soon as he steps out of his car, here comes Victoria, folder in hand, ready to perform. She starts on this long speech about community standards, hands the deputy a stack of complaints and photos, the whole 9 yards. Deputy Gray reviews everything, looks at my deed, looks at Victoria, and then just starts shaking his head. Ma'am, community agreements don't override private property rights, he says as politely as possible. If Mr. Walker owns this lake, he can do whatever he wants as long as he's not breaking any laws. Victoria tries to argue noise ordinances, but the deputy's already checked. Unless he's over the decibel limit after dark, there's nothing here. And then right in front of everyone, he warns Victoria about filing false reports, hands me his business card, and tells me to keep documenting her harassment. But Victoria's not done. Over the next week, she starts measuring distances from her house to my lake. taking pictures from every angle, calling in more complaints this time, about habitat destruction threats, you name it. She even sets up a tripod with a camera pointed at my lake, looking for anything she can twist into a violation. It's like she's trying to run a sting operation. Finally, I've had enough. After she calls the police again this time, claiming I threatened her, Deputy Gray shows up, listens to both sides, reviews my log of her harassment, and pretty much tells her to knock it off. "Ma'am, you keep this up, you're gonna be facing charges yourself," he says. I see the panic start to set in, but she still won't let it go. So I come up with a plan. I build a giant sign at my property line, Private Ranch Lake HOA Free Zone. Property boundaries verified. I invite the whole neighborhood over for a barbecue and a crash course on property rights. And you better believe Olivia brings the iced tea. Half the neighborhood shows up, HOA members and non-members alike. And as I explain everything, people start sharing their own Victoria horror stories. And right then, Victoria storms over waving some legal-looking paper and tries to shut down my barbecue on my property. You ever see a whole crowd laugh at someone in real time? That's what happened. I hold up my deed, tell her she has no authority here, and just as she starts dialing 911, Deputy Gray pulls up. He's grinning before he even gets out of the car. "Actually, Mrs. Knight, I'm not here about Mr. Walker's barbecue. I'm here because you filed 8 false police reports, all determined to be bogus. That's a misdemeanor in this county. Here's your citation." The whole neighborhood watches as Victoria's face goes from red to white to something in between. Deputy Gray tells her she's banned from contacting me, warns her about harassment, and says any more false reports could land her in jail. And just like that, it was over. Victoria Knight, the self-appointed admiral of the lake, got voted out as HOA president. Within the month, Olivia took her place and rolled back all the ridiculous rules Victoria had put in place. My jet ski weekends turned into a tradition. The lake became a community treasure by choice, not force. And Victoria moved out, unable to face the reality of living next to the water she'd tried so hard to control. Now every time Deputy Gray drives by, he honks and waves, and I know he's still telling the story at the station, the one about the HOA president who called the cops on a guy for using his own lake. So what do you think? Was justice served, or did it go too far? Let me know down in the comments, because if you've ever had a neighbor like Victoria, this kind of story is just the tip of the iceberg. And hey, if you believe in property rights and standing up to bullies, don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear it.